I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The following board members are in attendance: Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Allison Lasan, Sheila Taylor, Dr. Stacy Barker, Michelle Akateb, and Jenny Prosnick. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 089. The time is 6 p.m. open session. The time is 7 p.m. Students from Morningside Elementary will now lead us in our pledges. We have a brother and a sister with us tonight. Fourth grader Irene Hennock, along with her brother Jonathan Hennock. Will you please join us in the pledges?
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, join us up front. Jonathan, I understand your struggles. Irene enjoys reading. When asked what she would like to be when she grows up, Irene said, a lawyer. Miss Bay is right over there. Irene's favorite teacher is Mrs. Sanford because she made Irene feel comfortable at school. Some fun facts about Jonathan. Jonathan also enjoys reading. When he grows up, Jonathan would like to be a police officer. His favorite teacher is Mrs. Castillo because Jonathan said she is kind and tries to be funny when she is teaching. Can we please recognize their amazing parents who share and partner with us for their children's education? Thank you both so much. Good job. Welcome to all. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly to receive reports from staff and take action on recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation 10 days in advance of these regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions. The board also meets in regularly scheduled workshops and work sessions where staff discussions and presentations are given for many of the agenda items. This protocol means lengthy discussion or a litany of questions on every agenda item often is not necessary. And as a board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of our meeting tonight. Next on the agenda is to consider action items discussed in closed session. There are no items to be considered from closed session. Next up is the best part of the evening, which is our recognitions. Communications will now share this month's recognitions, which are, we are excited to recognize our 2024-25 Teachers of the Year. With many of them in attendance this evening, each campus winner will be announced and celebrated with a highly coveted trophy that they may keep. Please feel, we're not taking it back. We don't have a lot of money, but we're not taking back your trophies. We are so grateful that they choose LISD to call their work home. Please feel free to cheer on each recipient as they cross the stage. Board, will you join me down front?
Out of the blue. Yep. I can probably scoot down that way a little bit. Perfect. Thank you, Madam President. These incredible educators don't just teach, they inspire, they uplift, and they transform lives every single day. They pour their hearts into their students, support their colleagues, and strengthen the communities that we all call home. Their dedication to public education is nothing short of extraordinary, and for that we are beyond grateful. So let's take a moment to celebrate them, to honor their passion, and to thank them for shaping the future one student at a time. First up, we'd like to recognize our Elementary Campus Teachers of the Year. First row, will y'all come on up? From B.B. Owen, Christine Baxter-Teague. From Bluebonnet Elementary, Martha Soldner. From Kenya Elementary, Martha Bagazinski. From Castle Hills Elementary, Tanya Newell. From Central Elementary, Renata Thedford. From Creekside Elementary, Dion Seppelin. From DeGan Elementary, Noel Griffith. From Donald STEM Academy, Jennifer Hasty. From Etheridge Elementary, Lizzie Hartman. From Flower Mound Elementary, Carrie Cooper. From Forest Vista Elementary, Krista Steinwender. From Hebron Valley Elementary, Chastity Brown. From Heritage Elementary, Amber Yarbrough. From Hicks Elementary, Becky Davis. From Highland Village Elementary, Megan Bodine. From Indian Creek Elementary, Kimberly Bonaventura. From Lakeland Elementary, Rainey Stevenson. You're good. From Lewisville Elementary, Priya Sangeeth. From Liberty Elementary, Alicia Ducati. From Willie Jackson Early Childhood Center, Leah Sanchez. From McAuliffe Elementary, Emily Evans. From Memorial STEM Academy, Leslie Mays. From Mill Street Elementary, Araceli Hernandez. From Morningside Elementary, Hawk Vong. From Old Settlers Elementary, Sarah Allen. From Parkway Elementary, Gabriela Rivera Cruz. From Peters Colony Elementary, Angela Madrid. From Polzer STEM Academy, Lydia Bird. From Prairie Trail Elementary, Joe Fisher. From Rockbrook Elementary, Patricia Coleman. From Southbridge Elementary, Courtney Adams. From Timber Creek Elementary, Mary Cam. From Valley Ridge STEM Academy, Tara Tallis. From Vickery Elementary, Gentry Carter. And from Wellington Elementary, Susan Reed. Congratulations, Elementary Campus Teachers of the Year. All right, now it's time for our Secondary Teachers of the Year. From Briar Hill Middle School, Rachel Reed. From DeLay Middle School, Holly Weston. From Downing Middle School, Joseph Sipsner. From Durham Middle School, Tia Rossman. From Flower Mound 9th grade campus, Tim Fales. From Flower Mound High School, Jimmy Mangus. From Forestwood Middle School, Jenna Cummings. From Griffin Middle School, Elizabeth Garrison. From Hebron High School, Deborah Corbett. From Hebron 9th grade campus, Lisa Howe. From Hedrick Middle School, Jessica Brown. From Huffines Middle School, Monica Johnston Miller. Hi. From Killian Middle School, Catherine Treckenmiller. From Lakeview Middle School, Abby Lyons. From Lamar Middle School, Chad LaFrance. From Lewisville High School, Blair Green. From Lewisville Learning Center, Rebecca Lamb. From LHS Harmon, Josh Crow. From LHS Kilo, Kara Jones. From Marcus 9th grade, Nikki Minnick. From Marcus High School, Tyler Pirtle. From Shadow Ridge Middle School, Rhonda Reinmacher. From the Student Success Center, Chad Russell. From Tech West, Nathan Fuquay. From the Colony High School, Wendy Curran-Meyer. From the Virtual Learning Academy, Sandy Lumley.
get one more round of applause, not only for our teachers of the year, but for all the teachers who teach every day in this district. Dr. Bonner will now present this month's Recognize Someone.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. A parent recently shared about Miss Rutherford at Coyote Ridge Elementary School. Miss Rutherford has taught my son in both 2nd and 4th grade. She is focused on learning, but also has a playfulness about her, an understanding of the child mentality that allows her to bond well and extract alignment from a child. They trust her, they like her, and they are learning. At a time where teachers have so many responsibilities, she is above all consumed with the children walking out of her class, having learned the material. She is awesome. And then further about Dr. Lancaster at Lewisville High School. Our son has discussed going into the business world his entire life. This year he took anatomy with Dr. Lancaster, and his eyes have been open to a new dream. Around midterm, our son came home casually mentioning the possibility of a future in the medical field. Dr. Lancaster has not only challenged and inspired him to work hard each and every day with engaging lessons, but he may also have altered his future trajectory. Thank you, Dr. Lancaster, for helping our son to dream big. What a gift. Thank you.
Next up is our superintendent update. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you so much. It's an honor to get to bring this update to you every month, and we talk about how important it is to recognize someone's that our community and our parents and our staff share about each other. We got one this month for the school board, so I would like to read that out loud for you all at this time. Congratulations, LISD School Board. This is what Elizabeth Rennick shared about you. Thank you, School Board. Your hard work advocating for our students, staff, and schools is greatly appreciated. Thanks for all of your hard work and patience. I appreciate the time and energy you put into all of the decisions, and I know we would not be the district we are without each and every one of you. Thank you. There is a lot to celebrate in our wonderful school district, and it truly is an honor to have the amazing staff that we have. And so thank you, Board, for celebrating them this evening. And I know there are a lot of family, friends, and loved ones out there, too. And so congratulations to you for coming to celebrate all the wonderful staff in the room. Can y'all give it up for them one more time? This month, I want to celebrate some important highlights that we've had going on around the school district. We had a wonderful 32nd annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. I appreciate so much our community coming together and all of you being there as well. So proud of our students and staff and their talent that was on display in that wonderful celebration. We're proud as a district to be the host of that celebration for the North Texas MLK event. Also, we're proud to report that our CTE has been awarded as a District of Distinction. This is the first ever of these kind of awards, and we are one of 38 districts that are receiving this distinction. And specifically, when they thought of school districts to award, they selected districts that serve as models of excellence. And LISD will be honored at the conference later this month. So congratulations to our CTE educators and our team. And then we are also proud of our Spelling Bee district winners. We had two winners from BB Owen and Polzer. We're very proud of Christine and Malavika, and we look forward to them advancing to the Denton County Spelling Bee. We are the host for that Denton County Bee, and that's on February 12th. We are recently celebrated our Collegiate Academy cohort for the upcoming school year. Over 130 students were accepted into the Collegiate Academy from around the district, and those award granting recognitions and celebrating their acceptance happened last week, and we're proud of them for that. And then, of course, you know I enjoy connecting with students every single month. It seems as though I'm meeting with some group of students, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school student advisories. And this last month, I met with both elementary and middle school and was able to get their feedback about technology in the classroom and just improvements that they wanted to see us make, and I appreciate that as well. And I do want to say thank you. I see our child nutrition team walked in back there as well. They have implemented some of the changes from our student advisory in the fall. So some of the items that we got feedback about that the students did not like, they have worked to address that. And so I think we have the best child nutrition team around, and I appreciate them taking that feedback as well. And then yesterday, we, myself and Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Sells were at the send-off concert for Arbor Creek. They had their send-off performance. Their band was honored with the TMEA 2C Honor Band for the state of Texas. And then we also have Marcus High School that was an invited percussion ensemble. For two districts to have these level of performances at TMEA is a very, very huge accomplishment and honor. That convention is in San Antonio this week, and I have no doubt that they will make LISD very, very proud, and we're very, very proud of them. And then one of my favorite things to do each and every year is to go to the LISD High School Art Show. I really love going to all of our art shows. And seeing the talent that is on display. But at the high school one specifically, I'm allowed one award, even though every year I ask to be able to give away more, because it is very hard to choose from the amazing art pieces that are on display. But I selected Mia Martinez from the Colony High School as the Superintendent's Choice Award winner. Her art will be added to the second floor upstairs with all the previous superintendent winners as well. And it was a pleasure to get to meet her at the art show. We recently celebrated our 100th day of school. I loved getting to visit Miss Warner's class at Garden Ridge Elementary. It was under construction for the 100th day, and they had a lot of projects going on with counting and building, construction projects related to objects up to 100. They were doing a great job, and I appreciate all the celebrations around the district for that. And then I do enjoy hosting. I started this after I became superintendent, a supper with the superintendent. That's for kindergarten and first grade parents, where they are able to come and learn about our district. We had a great turnout last week, and I look forward to another one of those later in the spring. And then when it comes to our connection and communication with our staff, that is of great importance to me. We administer pulse checks 3 times a year to our staff. From the second staff pulse check, the majority of our metrics did increase from the fall. And over 80% of our staff indicated that there's clear and open communication on important school and district issues. And that metric's important to me because there's never been a more complex time that we navigate as a district with what we face in public education. So to be open with our staff about what we're facing and to help educate them about the issues we're facing is important, and we will continue to maintain our commitment to that. We also are celebrating our recent news about our teacher turnover rate. It dropped 2 percentage points, which I'm very proud of, to 16.5%. Yeah, you can clap for that. We could not be more proud, as we said, of our staff, and we work so hard to have a culture in Lewisville ISD that recognizes our staff and celebrates them. And so we have the lowest teacher turnover rate of the large districts in the DFW area with this 16.5%. Thank you to our staff for sticking with us. We've said that multiple board meetings. Again, it's not been harder to navigate some of the issues we face in education, and we are so very, very proud of you. And then a couple of things regarding connection with the community. I had a chance, Ms. Lasan and Ms. Sells were both there. Ms. Lasan connected me to coming to speak to Lewisville Noon Rotary and provide them an update. And then many of you, of course, as you see on the screen, we were all together for the Flower Mound Chamber Annual Awards Luncheon. And I was honored to be asked to be part of the video that honored Kathy O'Keefe with the Spirit of Flower Mound Award. Very proud of her work in our community. And then our newsletters, ultimately, we still have very good click rates on those and readership. The most clicked on links were the family calendar survey page, and then the unwrapped episodes about the calendar as well. I did want to provide about where we are on implementation of our campus retirement work. February 18th is the date that we have committed to staff whose preferences indicated they wanted to follow students to their new school, that they would find out about those placements on that date. Student transfers that were submitted last week by February 7th are now under our priority review that we committed to our families, and we are going to be sure to notify them the week of February 18th about their transfer. Transfers not submitted for priority review, of course, are still going to be reviewed. We will notify those families the week of April the 11th. Boundary adjustment, grandfather request, that form closed on February 7th, and we're currently going through those as we prepare for staffing. We're also working to determine timelines related to logistics for packing and moving of items for teachers for their classrooms, and we'll be sharing that later in the spring. Hebron Valley has begun the campus STEM certification process and is on track to earn that by the start of the school year. And teachers and administrators from Hebron Valley are already beginning to work on their certifications. We will be writing a family update to our families impacted by school retirement and boundary adjustments this week as we work to keep them updated. The legacy committees that are in the process of being formed, those are the committees that will create the experiences that honor the legacy of each school that is being retired. Communications is working on the web pages for the legacy information, and it will provide information about the legacy activities that will be going on. Along with it provides important information about the history of the school and is a way for us to collect stories from the community also. So those will be going live as well. And then upcoming, we of course are celebrating Black History Month with celebrations around the school district. We've got our HBCU fair, which I understand that Ms. Taylor is going to be a panelist for, if I have that correct. And then we have our Chin Festival, because National Chin Day for February 20th, and then Career Out for February 27th. And with that, that's my update. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Public comments are next on the agenda. Those who wish to speak at a board meeting often expect a dialogue with the Board of Trustees. However, in accordance with Texas law, the board is not able to respond directly to comments or questions posed by speakers. Texas law also does not allow the board to discuss or take action on any issue presented during the public forum unless the item has already been posted for action on the meeting agenda. Each speaker will receive a written follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and the district administration welcomes and values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD and the families and the communities we serve. Lewisville ISD stakeholders, meeting current students, parents, employees, and residents of Lewisville ISD, will have up to 3 minutes for their presentation. First up, Georgiana Bustos.
Over a decade, our schools have faced budget cuts, unfunded mandates, and the threat of vouchers, forcing local school boards to operate under a system designed to fail. This is not a school board failure. This is a state-created crisis. I refuse to stand by while our public schools are scapegoated for failure in Austin. That's why I'm asking you to join forces with parents, community members, and local leaders to demand solutions. From what I've learned, our schools need a minimum of the following: increase per student allotment and tie it to inflation, fully fund all mandates, base funding on enrollment and not attendance, reject vouchers that drain resources from public schools, and ensure recapture funds go to the state school fund and not our general fund. But we need more than just the school board support. We need our city council and businesses to join in this fight. That's why I asked the LISD board to join us and attend some of the upcoming city council meetings and request their public backing, because strong schools create strong communities. When schools struggle, everyone suffers. Property values decline, businesses close, crime rates increase, and major employers look elsewhere for skilled workforce. Right now, the Texas legislature is considering a $5 billion increase in school funding. But let's be honest, that's just a drop in the bucket. Our schools need at least $9.3 billion to be fully funded, and we currently have $24 billion in excess in our school funding. We cannot afford to wait another 2 years for the next legislative session. How many schools must close? How many programs must be cut before Texas becomes the most undereducated state in the nation? Our schools are at breaking point, but they are worth fighting for. I ask this board to stand with the community in demanding full funding for public education. I ask our city leaders to join us in advocating for policies that strengthen, not weaken, our schools. And I ask every parent, business owner, and resident to raise your voice and demand better for our children. Together, we can change the narrative. We can expose the true culprit behind our education crisis and ensure a brighter future for our students, our schools, and our communities. It starts here, it starts today, and it starts with us. Together, we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Del Frey?
Good evening, fellow board. Thank you for the time. I'm Dale Frey. I am a resident of Lewisville ISD, and I wanted to come to you today. First, I need to apologize in advance if my speech is a little bit dated. I'm not sure if you guys have had the opportunity to think about the following subject yet or come to a conclusion on this. But today I want to bring up the concept of the Blue Bonnet curriculum being brought up by the State Board of Education. And when I say Blue Bonnet to those in the room, I'm not talking about the school. I'm talking about a curriculum. I grow very concerned about this, as this curriculum, of course, is something that pushes Christian theology into our schools and teaches Bible lessons starting from kindergarten going up to grade 5. I think this really opens up a very large can of worms. First of all, we have to ask ourselves which denomination is being taught here. If you take a Catholic and a Southern Baptist and you put them in the same room, theologically, they're going to disagree on probably quite more than a few things. So it really opens up a can of worms, right? Not to mention, this can also turn our schools into a potential competitor to our churches, because if you're going to send your youngster to church once a week on Sundays, well, that parent's also going to say, well, wait a minute, I send my kid to a public school on multiple days per week. It can make the school look like a competitor to the church. So I wanted to voice my concern there, and I also, of course, did want to say that, obviously this would also hurt those who are Jewish and Muslim and those who are not of faith, and of course this applies to both our students and our teachers as well. With that said, if I do have that much time, then I'll keep going. I understand why this could be tempting. The reason it's tempting is because it will increase slightly the amount of funding coming to this ISD. I understand that all of our ISDs are lacking in funds. If I were you, I would do anything that I can to increase the amount of funding coming into our ISD. I would take any deal that I could. However, this is just simply not enough. From what I understand, this curriculum would, if you were to accept this curriculum into this ISD, I believe it would only increase your funding by $60 per student. $60 per student to you, honestly, to me, feels like a slap in the face. Because look, guys, we had a lot of really good candidates run in this past election. And almost every one of us, at least us on the Democratic side of the aisle, have been pushing for and running for increasing the basic allotment by $1,400, because we know the basic allotment hasn't been adjusted since 2019, and inflation's been killing us in the sector. $1,400 per student is what we need at least to combat the inflation we've had since 2019. And so when I see this is only going to increase the funding $60 per kid, merely $60 per kid, for all of us who wanted to increase the basic allotment by $1,400, that's a real punch in the gut. So I'm not sure if you all have had the opportunity to sit down and think about whether or not you all will accept this curriculum, but if you are still thinking about it, I want you to take that to your heart and to your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frey. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the Texas Academic Performance Report, or TAPER, for the 23-24 school year. Dr. Fitzhugh.
Okay, good evening. It's that time of year to talk about the TAPR. Tonight, I just want to highlight as we go into this public hearing that there are several different accountability systems that are utilized across the state to look at data for public schools. This is just a small sample of those lists. As you can see, they all rely on very similar data sets. They just look at the data a little bit differently. And so tonight we're going to focus on a couple just to kind of highlight, and then we're going to get into the TAPR. So one of those areas is the A to F rating. Currently, we do not have academic ratings because there is a lawsuit pending. We will come back to this when the results of that lawsuit have been decided and take the appropriate action at that time. Another area that they look at is called results-driven accountability. This looks at our data through different student groups to see how they're performing in comparison to different state targets. One of those groups is emergent bilingual. Our current data indicates that we are a needs assistant determination level 2. There's 4 different determination levels that you can possibly be. The first one is a DL1, which is meets requirements. The second is a needs assistance. The third is needs intervention. And the fourth is needs substantial intervention. So we are on 2, which means some of our areas are a little bit below the state's performance thresholds, and so locally we are working on a plan to address those areas where we are not performing at the state criteria level. When you look at our emergent bilingual, the areas that are mainly contributing to that are our science and social studies STAR tests. Our students are not performing as high as the state would like to see. Our strength in that area, though, is that once our students are reclassified out of being emergent bilingual, they are proficient in English. They perform very, very well. And then also our students who take the EOC tests that are served through emergent bilingual perform very high as well. So we have some strengths in that area and some areas to look at. The second area in results-driven accountability is called other special populations. It looks at several smaller groups of students to see how they're performing on academic measures. We, again, are a needs assistance determination level 2. It's a local engagement and improvement activities. The reason we're identified there is because of our social studies STAR and then our dropout rate. This is a very small group of students, and every year it kind of changes, so we're just working to make sure we're identifying and addressing student needs. And then the last area in that results-driven accountability is special education. We are a meets requirement for that one, and so we are just looking at where we have a few gaps and areas to address and just addressing those locally. And with that, now we're going to get into the TAPR data. The TAPR is a 33-page report that is loaded with all sorts of good, fun facts about our district and different data sets that we submit. While I'm just going to give you a small sample today, please know that I have a link and you are more than welcome, and I would entertain any questions that you might have to look at all those other data pieces. I just am not going to do 33 pages worth tonight for you. So one of the things I'm going to start with is our 4-year graduation rate. We pull this piece of data out because that's our main goal, is to have students successfully graduate. We work with students from the age of 3 to 18. Sometimes our students stay a little bit longer to make sure that they successfully graduate. What you can see if you look at that LISD all student column is that our graduation rate is higher than the state, it's higher than the regions. We took a slight dip from the previous graduation group, but we still are outperforming all of those around us. And I specifically pull out our emergent bilingual, our special education, our economically disadvantaged groups, because they are very much so higher than the state and the areas around us. We really work with all of our students who have different needs to make sure that they are successful. Along with that is the dropout rate. So one of the things that happens between 9th and 12th grade is we have to keep you in school so you can graduate with your cohort. So one of those things we monitor is how many of our students are remaining with us. Our dropout rate, while already low with the group from 2022 at 1.0%, dropped to 0.9%. You can see that we showed decreases across the board. Our economically disadvantaged remained the same. That's good news for our future graduation rates because it means we're keeping students with us. Another piece of data that I'm going to highlight tonight is our CCMR data. That's College Career Military Readiness. This data is lagging, and so one of the things we talked about last year was we identified several interventions and things we would like to see because our data has slipped a little bit below the state. So while we've implemented some of those, you can see a slight increase from 2022 to 23. We really won't see the fruits of the things that we implemented for another year, maybe 2 years, as we work those through the system. But you are seeing that we are showing improvement, and that's one of the things we're focusing on. With that CCMR discussion, I just want to highlight some of the things that we're working through. So we're looking at how our students are engaging in it versus the state accountability, because one of the things that happens is TEA reserves the right to change the definition of what it is to be college, career, military ready as throughout time. I mean, it's changed several times. So we continue to look at locally what are we having students engage in, and then how do we also fit that into the state definition. For fall, we've done a lot of work with our campus leaders on analyzing data about what it is which students are already ready, what are some different things we can have other students engage in. We've increased our TSI testing for students who've completed English 3 as well as Algebra 2. We've increased our CTE exploration, and we're just continuing to work to meet individual student needs as we move through. And then this is not part of the TAPR, but we just like to highlight that we also look at data locally with local measures, and the local measure we use is iStation reading. And so this is our last year data, end of year, for our students who showed growth or were on grade level for iStation reading at each grade level. As you can see, we're in the low 90s, fifth grades at 88%. Sometimes we see a little drop off with our fifth graders. I don't think it's that they've forgotten how to read. I think sometimes there's just a little bit of a motivation piece with that online test. And so we talk a lot with our fifth grade teachers about that. Now, this is normally where Ms. Cobb would come and talk, but because I am here, I was elected. And so she's going to give me a thumbs up if I misspeak at any given point in this, as it's not my area of expertise. But one of the things the TAPR also concludes is information about our teachers and how long they've been employed as teachers and worked with us. When you look at our data, you can see that pretty consistently, over 50% of our teachers in LIC have had 10 or more years of experience. It kind of speaks to what we talked about earlier. Our teachers come and they stay and they really engage in the work, and so that is something to be really proud of. Also, if you look at that beginning teacher, it kind of dropped off a little bit. So we're starting to see that our teachers are not having as much turnover there, which we celebrated just a few minutes ago. And we're going to celebrate it again. So our turnover rate actually went down at 16.3%, which is a decrease. The state's also decreased, but it's at 19.1%. So again, it's one of the things that we really work hard on, is to make sure that once we have teachers here, that they stay here. We've worked to train them. They're in our system, and an experienced teacher is a great teacher in our schools. Our long-range plan, one of our goals is to stay in the top quartile of our market group and have the lowest turnover rate, and we met that goal this year as well. When we look at turnover rates, one of the things, because we have that veteran teaching force, a lot of times a lot of our turnover is based on retirement, and so there's just some data here to help you see that about 21.4% of our turnover rate in 22-23 was due to retirement. If we were to remove those, our turnover rate does drop. Long-term subs are considered in that turnover rate, so we just kind of have to keep that in mind as we look at different things happening. And then we've talked about the other ones. And then Mr. Rare.
These next two slides will take a look at our revenue and expenditures in comparison to the state average. These are for the fiscal year of 2022-23. So this first slide looks at our actual operating revenue, and this is for all funds. So it would be for the general fund, debt service, child nutrition, capital projects, federal funds as well would be included. And so it looks at our spending or our revenue on this one per student versus the state average per student. So you'll see for local property taxes, due to the fact that we have higher property values in this district than the state average would be, our local property tax collections would actually be higher than the state average. But you'll look at the next one, the state operating funds. We had $713 per student. The state average is $4,310. So we were significantly less because we were receiving additional property taxes. Then you also see the federal funds and the other local revenue. to bring us to a total of our operating revenue, excluding debt service and revenue lost recapture, of $10,760 per student. That operating revenue is $2,063 less than the state average. And so if you took that $2,000 decrease and multiplied that times the number of students that we had for that year, which was $48,966, that would show that we received revenue of $101 million less than the state average. Then the next slide, we'll take a look at the expenditures. And once again, this is for 2022-23, and this is operating expenditures for all funds. You'll see payroll, contracted services, supplies, other operating expenditures. The total there is $11,516, and that's our operating expenditures excluding recapture, appraisal district costs, debt service, and capital projects. And so for that, our operating expenditures are $872 less than the state average.
And that concludes the data that we're presenting tonight about the TAPR. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Ms. Taylor.
Thank you for the report, Dr. Fitzhugh. My question was, when you talked about the cohorts that included foster care, the homeless, and military, you mentioned it was a small group. Do we know the percentage of the students?
I don't know the percentage. I know that we have less than 50. I believe that was the count when I looked at it.
Okay. And then my other question was, is there a way to get the data for the state by cohort? It seemed like it was presented in total, so you can see the differences across the student groups.
For the TAPR, the state does create a data download that allows you to, I don't know if I can get exactly what you're asking.
Okay.
The data download wasn't ready last week, and I don't think it is now. When it is ready, Dr. Barker says it's not ready today either. So I'm not able to get that right now, but theoretically, yes, we should be able to get statewide data at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Bonner.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. Dr. Fitzhugh, you buried the lead on the red boxes. Just a quick eye down that column indicates not only does the district best the state, but it bests the region. You had isolated all students, all subjects, all grades. It's every student's group, every subject, every grade. So we need to make that public and make that known, because that is not accomplished in failing school districts. That's a district of success. And I think that's important to highlight that. I probably stole Dr. Barker's thunder there. I'm so sorry. Can I make another couple of comments? On slide 52, page 52, that graphic is really just where you want to be from a staffing standpoint. It's a bell-shaped curve, more or less. I am concerned about, as the 11th to 20 years matriculate out, you can see we've got a little bit lesser experienced cohorts following them. So I think that's an indicator of where the profession is in society, frankly. So good for us right now, but it's something to keep our eye on as we proceed. Perhaps we can hire more experienced teachers from other districts. So thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll just add on to what you said. Imagine how much better we could do if we had all of that money that Mr. Rare shared with us goes back to the state. If we're already a successful district underneath the crunch that we currently have, just imagine what it would look like and what we could do if we were fully funded. Just imagine. So many things. Okay. But I have just one minor question that came up, and this may be a Ms. Gall question at some point, but in terms of what we're doing with our CCMR, which I think we're making great strides, I can't wait to see it impact our future cohorts. Hate lagging data, it's dead data, but that's okay, we'll get there. My curiosity comes, we've added in that requirement for TSI testing as course completion for Algebra 2 and English 3, which I think is a really great strategy. My only question is, if students have already received CCMR by some other test, maybe it's SAT or ACT or something like that, is there a way, or is it in the plans to exempt them? Because we don't want to test them if they don't need it.
So one of the things, we allow students to make a choice if they want to take it or not, because there are some that they might have met the CCMR requirement, but their college might not be quite high enough for TSI. So since we're offering that for all students, we don't want to deny them an opportunity. So we do have some that opt in, we have some that choose not to.
Ms. Hassan.
Thank you so much for the report. Going into the CCMR discussions, as several of us here at this dais have kids the same age. We just got through, registering for next year, and my son, I was talking to Ms. Scall about this at dinner, that my son was just kind of beside himself. He wanted to do something at the Career Center, but he didn't know what, and anyway, ultimately we decided on something. But I guess I wanted to kind of point out, right, that, so he decided he wants to try architecture. But he won't be, that may not even go into this, even though he's gone over there and done stuff, unless he's considered like a completer, right? Which means he goes through these certain courses. But the whole idea is, and I'm just pointing this out, you know this, but is the whole idea is for him to go to a career center, try and experience something, and then decide whether or not that's for him or not. And that's what we want these kids to be able to do. And so I don't know if you want to expound upon that. But
that's just part of the changing definition that TEA continues to, as districts have met a criteria, TEA increases what is required. So it used to be that students had to take a CTE course, have a certification. Now it's they have to complete a pathway and have a certification. And so there's also, TEA has decided that some pathways aren't as good as others, and so they don't count anymore. So with that, that's kind of the ever evolving. So yes, if your son does not finish that pathway and earn a certification in that pathway, he will not meet CCMR under that.
And I guess by saying all that, I'm trying to point out that, so these percentages look low, but we actually do have lots of kids that are, going to these CTE classes and stuff and experiencing things. So
yes,
it's just unfortunate.
Ms. Sells.
Well, I have a lot, and I'm going to retain some of it because y'all know how I feel about some of what's going on in Austin. But it was interesting that we still maintain the retaining rate of our teachers that we do, even though I remember being in Austin and our teachers being promised $5,000 within my earshot. And as that worked out last session, that ended up being, and I think it was about $238. No, 500. It was in that range. It was about two something, depending on where you fell, but it was not near the 5,000 that we heard. We heard. It was interesting. Without the money, I would say, and Dr. Bonner has been in this position, and Ms. Cobb now holds the position here in HR in our district. But if we can't pay our teachers, many of our teachers are hurting because, especially this year, I heard this morning at one of my mom's organizations I belong to about a teacher that, and they're all in the same boat this year, that even with the raise they were given, with the increases in insurance, their take-home pay is less than what it is right now. When we see, though, graduation rates like we see, and when we see success of kids like we see in Lewisville ISD, that's hard. Hard to sit here and see that. And then we look at that dropout rate. Oh my goodness. We're reaching our students. We're reaching the kids here in LISD. And many of these kids struggle. And many of them don't come from a background that necessarily promotes education and the importance of being to school on time and being in the seat. I want to tell you about a child that I have a personal relationship with. She went one semester or one program out at culinary at Tech West. She fell in love with it. She did not continue because she also wanted to be in musical theater at the Colony High School. That child is now attending an out-of-state college. She's been accepted into one of the top-notch pastry colleges in the nation. So the impact of that one semester or that one period of time for this student was impactful, but we don't get to count her there, and she's not going to a state school. So we don't get to count her there. If you don't know, if they don't go to a Texas State University, they are not counted as college in that college-ready matrix. But you can't tell me that we have not succeeded with that child. And that is what is frustrating with this. Stop moving the goalpost. Let us show that our kids are succeeding. Let us figure out a local. And so I encourage everybody, go out and look. The taper will tell you a lot, but I will tell you the taper will tell you not a lot also about the population of our students and the success we have with them. And so I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you.
The only thing I would add to that is the taper tells us a lot of what it was like 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
It does not tell us what it is today. It does not acknowledge, as Dr. Barker said and Dr. Fitzhugh said, the interventions and how we shift and how we adjust to meet our students where they are. And so a lot of great data, but it does not reflect where students are today. It reflects where they were 2 years ago. So with that, the public hearing on the Texas Academic Performance Report is now open. If there are any persons present who would like to speak to this topic, please come forward at this time. If there are no speakers, I declare this public hearing closed. Next on the agenda is consent items. Are there any items to be pulled, or would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Lasan.
Hold on, I'm flipping the page. Okay. I move that the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration with the exception of the following item pulled for separate consideration. The item number is K1A2.
Is there a second? Ms. Al-Kateb? All those in favor? Vote carries 7-0. Ms. Lasan, would you like to speak to item K12, which is consider approval of the guaranteed maximum price for the 2023 bond first sale for Downing Middle School 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair project?
Yes, I would. Should I go ahead and make a motion?
Please.
Or,
yes.
And then we can discuss?
Yeah, make your motion.
Okay, hold on. I got to pledge again. Okay. I move that the board approve the consent agenda item to approve only safety items. I move that the board approve item K1A2 in the following manner. Approve the safety items available to be completed as determined by administration and deny additional projects.
Is there a second? Ms. Taylor?
I would like to speak to that.
Any discussion?
Yes, I would. Okay. So as I, mentioned at the board workshop last Monday, I feel that doing a big life cycle, 20-year life cycle replacement of everything at Downing is not warranted at this time because we still, as we have voted to close 5 schools already, with the legislature being in session now and us just sort of being in flux, we haven't really decided what we want to do with middle schools, only that we're just putting them to the side. So I don't think it's a good idea at this time, since Downing was on the list that the Community Efficiency Committee indicated that we should do that at this time.
Ms. Sells?
Can I ask for a reading of the motion again?
A rereading. Ms. Lasan, could you please reread your motion?
Sure. It would be to only approve safety items. I move that the board approve item K1A2 in the following manner. Approve safety items available to be completed as determined by administration and deny additional projects. And as a comment, I believe that the fire alarm may have been one of the things that we had been mentioned as a safety item.
Ms. Sells, do you have any additional comments?
I just want clarification. So if we deny the additional projects, that's not denying indefinitely. That's your intent. That is only denying at this certain time.
Exactly, yes. So basically that the refresh would, if we passed it tonight, it would continue on. Where's Randy? I saw you back there. It would happen this summer if we passed it, correct? And so if we didn't, it would pass at a time to be determined. That would be next summer or beyond.
And so that would probably be brought back at some future workshop, work session.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll give some clarification. As always, administration can bring things before this board at any time, and it is our privilege and our responsibility to say yes or no. I will continue with the discussion and say that I agree with Ms. Lasan. I think that the board has not put a plan in place for middle schools, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, and I want to be fiscally responsible, and I also don't want to create work for staff that may or may not need to be done. I agree with the safety items being taken care of because the safety of our students is always a top priority for this board and this district. So those are just my thoughts. If anybody else has any comments, Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. The thing that keeps going through my mind is I don't want there to be an impression that a decision has been made about Downing. So I want people to understand that this board is not saying one way or the other what is the future of Downing. That's not what this is about. And that's what keeps going through my mind as I'm thinking about this motion, and I really struggled in the conversation that I was having because I don't want it to appear like we have already made up our minds about a campus because we haven't. That's not what this discussion is about. So I just wanted to make that very, very clear.
Ms. Taylor?
I agree with the points that have been made. I think it's financially prudent to wait is what I see. I don't see a full-out denial as in it will never happen, but I think waiting until we have a plan. We've already talked about how the legislative session is going on as well. There are just too many outstanding items for us to make a decision to move forward at this time, but I do agree with Dr. Barker. This does not mean a decision has been made one way or the other. We are just being, in my opinion, fiscally responsible at this time.
All right, there being no discussion, I have a motion from Ms. Lasan and a second from Ms. Taylor. All those in favor? That carries unanimous 7-0. Next up are information items. First up, Mr. Kaj has the transportation update.
Thank you, President Prosnick, board members, Dr. Rapp. I'm going to ask Mr. Walker, President and CEO of Texas Central, Ms. Hart, VP of Operations for Texas Central, and Jeff Sherman, Operations Specialist, to come forward to take us through the Service Improvement Action Plan and a little bit of an update about bus transportation.
Good evening. So to the members of the Lewisville School Board, Dr. Rapp, the parents and community, thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak with you, this evening. As Mr. Cash said, my name is Jason Walker. I am the President and CEO for Texas Central School Bus, joined by both Jeff Sherman and Kafria Hart. who work with our team as well. We are here to kind of give you really just an update on kind of what we're seeing in terms of transportation, both some of the root causes, that we're seeing with regards to some of the service disruptions, as well as give you some of the, I'll say, the statistics on our on-time arrivals, and also talk about some immediate next steps that we're taking within our team to address these issues that we're seeing. So please know that with some of the disruptions that we have seen, we understand the frustration that may cause both parents, school staff, yourselves, and know that we share in that frustration as well. So we have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Rapp and Mr. Cash and kind of working through some of those things. And these are some of the things that we want to share with you as we go through this today as well. First off, I want to start by reviewing some of the results that we're seeing. I'll say that our elementary schools, and I'll go through this for each of the tiers that we have, our elementary schools are seeing, I'll say, the most favorable outcomes. Looking at both AM and PM arrival times, on average, the elementary schools are arriving on time over 90% of the time. This certainly is a positive indicator, and while 90% is not where we want it to be, because as I tell our team all the time, I don't think we would trust any pilots that only landed successfully 90% of the time. So we want to make sure that we're getting students to school successfully 100% of the time. So that is our task, and that is what we're striving for. But the elementary tier does show that we are getting, seeing some success getting drivers into position to start the three-tier, process every day. The middle schools we're seeing some mixed results between the AM and PM times. The AM times are over 91% on time, and like I said, the PM is where we're seeing the challenges there. I will say the tier that we're seeing perhaps the most challenges is the high school tier, which is sandwiched in the middle. That's where, we are, like I said, we're striving to get to all the schools 100% on time. But, as I go into what we're seeing some of the root causes, one of the things we're seeing with the high school tiers, and I'll kind of hit that second bullet point first, is with the 35-minute gap that we have in between each bell times from elementary, high school and middle school, the miles that are having to be traveled, that is really putting a crunch on that middle tier. When we go from as I saw the recognition earlier today of your teachers, certainly there's a lot of elementary schools, and then to get from those elementary schools, get back on route to get to the high schools, and then get them back to school within that 35 minutes. Given I'll say the vastness of the district, we're seeing some challenges in getting that and being able to meet those times. I would also say, there is a driver staffing challenge as well. Much like it heard in the previous conversation about funding and those type of things, we have some of those challenges within, with our school bus drivers as well. Currently, we are, I'll say 85% staff of where we need to be. And please note that doesn't mean that only 85% of the routes are covered. We are looking for our staffing to be the number of routes, plus an additional 10% to cover for absenteeism and things like that. When we look at just the drivers we have plus the routes, that staffing is more at the 94% mark. But when we take into account the absenteeism that we want to take, to account for, that's where we get to the 85%. So those are some of the, I'll say, the results that we're seeing, and also some of the root causes. I've asked Ms. Hart to kind of walk us through what are some of the immediate action items we're taking. And we're certainly having conversations with Dr. Rapp, Mr. Cash, about some of the longer-term items that we can address. But certainly those longer-term, initiatives don't get kids to school on time tomorrow. And we want to make sure that we're addressing getting kids to school on time so that, you can continue the wonderful results that you're seeing from an education perspective with students.
So much, Jason, and thank you all very much once again for this opportunity to speak with you. So the first thing that we're looking at in terms of immediate action items that we can take to improve service is to do route consolidation. So we've identified opportunities to reduce approximately 20 routes. We're actively working on that right now. We've already reduced about 10. And what this does is help us align better with our current staffing levels. We're about halfway through the school year, a little bit over at this point, so we need to adjust to the new normal. We know where we want to be, as Jason was saying, we know where we want to be to 100%, but we want to focus on maintaining this new normal so that there's more reliability and less variance from day to day as we're struggling to cover the routes, as we deal with the absenteeism, as we deal with the changes. So even with our ridership studies showing that about 54% of eligible students are riding the bus, suggesting these route adjustments will help us balance that. So our routes are built to 100% of the ridership that we expected. So we know that there could be opportunity for improvement and optimization because we have routes that are not full. So if we take a look at this with our teams and make those steps to consolidate, we may be able to have some gains that will create a better system for our students and just decreasing that variance. So one thing that I'll say about that is that there will be impact to the routes with consolidation, but we want to work together to make sure that there's good communication so that we're communicating with you all as well as with the parents with the changes that are going to come out of this. So if there are swings where, a stop is going to be 5 minutes later or 5 minutes earlier than it was before, that we're actively addressing those concerns and communicating with you so that the parents will understand and we'll see increases in that reliability. I think the next thing on here is that we want to talk about enhanced driver resourcing. So we're going to reallocate 10 domiciled drivers to meet immediate needs. So that means we're pulling drivers from different sources moving forward. So wherever we can pull those drivers from the local community, we're going to pull them in to help us with the deficit. So we're trying to pull these drivers in and train them, about 10 drivers within the next 3 weeks. To accelerate this process, the corporate recruiting staff has been assigned to increase the rate of driver interviews and hires to ensure that all applicants are contacted within 24 hours of submitting their application. So we're hoping that by addressing this and kind of centralizing that staffing, that we're going to be able to have more applicants that we can review in a quicker amount of time and therefore increase that throughput. Because we are getting more drivers in, but we're also having drivers that leave. So we're trying to increase that pipeline so that we can maintain that those drivers. I'd also like to talk about the 2 van routes that we've recently implemented in response to your feedback to let you know we have definitely heard you. We had a route that was far too long for a special education route, and we have made those adjustments. We had one route that we broke into 2 routes, the regular route as well as a van route. So instead of that route being as long as it was before, we've got that initial route being less than an hour now with an additional 30-minute van route to help supplement. That way we don't have our special needs children, our special education children riding on a bus for far too long and just the concern that all that comes with that. All right. I'd also like to address the daily route coverage updates to make sure that we are keeping everyone informed, like I mentioned before. So we're going to add some more reporting to this and just more communication to make sure that you're getting updates early and often. So there are going to be morning updates that we're going to implement. So at 7:30 a.m., we want to make sure that we're reporting to you all on routes that started more than 10 minutes late or were combined, including those anticipated arrival times. By 9:30 a.m., which is after the a.m. routes, we're going to start doing a final update on all the routes that arrive late post first bell time. In the afternoon, we're going to make sure that you all are updated on late departures and combined routes with the expected arrival times. And then at 6 p.m., a detailed per-school on-time report summarizing the day's performance. We believe that this will give you the information that you need to be able to communicate with parents and communicate with the schools with what's going on so it's not, feeling that you're in the dark. Okay, so these initiatives were designed to improve the reliability, to reduce the ride times, and also keep families and staff well informed. There's also a lot of other things that we're talking about right now. We want to challenge the status quo. We don't want to just do things the way we've always done them, even in terms of the approaches and the things that we're implementing with these short-term action items. We're considering things that we've never done before. We're wanting to partner with you all as much as we can in that as well. Some other things that have come up recently that we can partner with you all on have to do with the overnight trips. So even recently, I'm not sure what the time frame was, but the El Paso trip. We had a number of drivers that have to drive down to El Paso, and it's 8 drivers. And when we do overnight trips, not only are we taking those drivers for that day, but they're away overnight, and we're already in a deficit currently. So it increases the deficit that we have to maintain, coverage for throughout the week. So one of the things we've been talking about is partnering with you all to, help us recruit those staff members that are able to drive, those coaches that are able to drive. Then we can work together and we can put together a stipend, an increased stipend than what we pay right now, which can help us increase, first of all, have coverage for our overnight trips, but also have a lesser impact to the day-to-day driver shortage that we're seeing. So we think that things like this and, just continuing to partner with you all and just coming up with different solutions to make sure that our kids are getting safely to school and back home again and on time and reliably with the parents and what, of course, our teachers, even at the school, and, of course, you all, what you expect from us and what you want for our kids. So we appreciate the time and definitely open to continued collaboration on that.
Board, are there any questions? Ms. Lassan.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for being here. Mr. Walker, I know that I believe that you're brand new to the organization. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I don't know how far you guys had to travel, but I know you guys may not live around here. So anyway, thank you for being here.
Well, I heard somebody mention something about Austin earlier, but as a UT Austin dad, coming to Texas is always a highlight of my day.
Well, that's good. There's several Aggies up here, but we won't hold that against you.
It's a 50-50 shot every time. So
you are so right. Anyway, okay. So thank you for being here. The first, I have several thoughts and questions. The first one that I had is, and I'm guessing that you probably do this. But do you guys use GIS software for bus routing? And if you do you do it in-house? Do you have a separate company? Do you update the maps often? I know that's kind of a lot of questions, but I would love to hear how you guys look at routing.
We do. And so we do have routing systems that we utilize, and we do have a company that we have partnered with on all of our routing, and they do it not just at this location, but a few others as well. That said, that routing, and I'll just say this, to your point, I've been with the company now for, I'd say, about 4 months. I know Ms. Hart has been with us now for about 2.5.
You're new as well. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
So some of the things that I think that we are looking to do a little differently is while that routing has been set at the beginning of school year, we recognize that every day is a little different. And the plans that we have at the beginning of school year often aren't the best plans during the middle of the school year or toward the end. And as your needs evolve throughout the year, we want to have our routing evolve as well. And so those are some of the things that we're looking to do a little differently. And that's thus the ridership survey and things like that to help us understand where we should be looking for some of those optimization opportunities.
Great, because that happens to be my background is GIS software, and so this board has heard me talk about that a lot. But anyway, so I'm glad to hear that because obviously it's all that changes. Obviously, you probably definitely don't need to do it daily or probably weekly, but maybe monthly, maybe. You never know.
Agree.
So one of the questions I was going to ask was about the audits of the routes timeliness, and it looks like you guys, based on your graph and stuff, that you do that. And, are you putting, corrections in place when errors are seen, when, you do have a driver? So this is going to be kind of a double question here. So when you do have drivers that are late for no good reason, let's say. Do we, there wasn't, they don't have a flat tire or I don't know what, but do we, have corrections in place for that, and how do you deal with that?
Absolutely. We are, working to continually hold drivers accountable when there are, I'll say failures along the route. Certainly we will go through and look at their GPS and pull those drivers in to have conversations about why their route was late or why they got on route late or whatever the case may be. And if we find that the reasons are not sufficient, then yes, we do have corrective action processes that we do follow.
Okay, great. And then the other side of that is, do you guys do incentives for drivers to be on time, that do a great job, that, because that can obviously help morale and...
No doubt. No doubt it can. There's two things to that. The first piece is we don't here. And part of that's because our contract with the drivers is, it's collectively bargained as part of the union, and those driver incentives are not part of that union contract. So we cannot just start a incentive program because it's not in the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, that's interesting.
The other piece of that is we do have some other school districts that we have seen that we have worked with that have incentive programs in for the drivers for on time. And I've seen that with mixed results. And just speaking for myself, I'll say results that I'm not comfortable with. Oftentimes when we incentivize the drivers for on time, being on time, we find that some drivers are incentivized to rush, and one crash is one crash too many. Mm-hmm. And we have seen, I've spoken with drivers that say, I was in a hurry because I was trying to make on time. And certainly when you have 3 tiers like you do, and there's going to be some challenges in that, I don't want to take that risk of someone rushing because they want to make an extra $100, $200, or whatever the case may be, trying to meet an on-time incentive. And so that's just a practice I've seen work. It's done elsewhere, but that's one of the collateral results that we have to be mindful of.
And that totally, I totally respect what you're saying there. And, I guess, you do know how fast they're going, though? I mean, like through GPS, right? I mean, okay, that's just a comment. Okay, board, I'm sorry, I have a couple more if you're good. Okay. So after your...
Can I make a comment about how fast they're going?
Of course.
We're also, we're working with those drivers through, we have dash cam on all the buses. And so we're pulling drivers in that we see that have adverse driving behaviors, even if they're on time, even if there is no crash or anything like that. But if we see a driver that is driving over the speed limit, that is having hard stops, sudden accelerations, or following too closely, we pull them in each day to have and correct and counsel them on that, and if necessary, issue corrective action based upon those adverse driving behaviors that we see.
Okay, that's good to know too. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, I guess I'm going to end with this. So, personal story here. Sorry, everyone. So, my son, we live in Highland Village. My son really likes it when I drive him to school, but some days he doesn't need that. And so, anyway, so what has happened is, you were talking about routes that aren't full, but I will say this, we really feel like we can't, and I have expressed this to Mr. Kosh, and sorry, Jeff, but it's not reliable. She's late probably most of the time, and by about 10 minutes at least. And so, Marcus is a big campus. He has to walk from one end to the other. He needs to put his saxophone away, blah, blah, blah. I know that's just my kid's story, but I guarantee you there's other kids that are having this story. Okay. It just so happens that I, most of the time, can take him to school. So, and I think probably other people in my neighborhood are probably kind of the same way. So they're not riding the bus because they can't rely on the bus. But I know there are other parts of the district where they have to rely on the bus. Their kids, that's how they're getting to school that day. So I guess I'm just giving you that feedback, that it's just frustrating to know that we can't really rely on it when we want. Now, granted, and so, I don't know what to follow up with that really, but that's just our experience and our frustration. So.
No, totally understood, and very valid frustration.
Ms. Sells?
I kind of said this under my breath, and I think it would pertain to probably you. 90 and 91% are great numbers, unless you're the 9 or the 10%. And so thank you for acknowledging that you're working to increase those numbers, because I didn't really have the issues that Ms. Lasan had, but I have had the issues of being out early in my neighborhood and seeing a child who was forgotten, and putting that child in my car, calling their parents, telling them who I am, and driving them back to their school. And so I think I saw how upset that child was that day and how that was going to affect the learning that happened for her that day. And so for the fact that this is how a kid's day starts, it's huge. It really sets that day, and so thank you for coming and presenting to us. We do appreciate your time and the effort and the things that you have brought to us. I had a question about the van routes. Those are the only two that you identified, and are those van drivers CDL licensed? Do they have to? How is that? What does our contract say on that? I mean, are we looking at it, if we're using vans, are we pulling a CDL driver that doesn't necessarily have to be CDL'd? That's what my question is. Is there another pool of drivers that if we had more vans operating that were not the little mini school buses that I think bring 2 kids to my whole neighborhood? So if we could use a van, would that open up a CDL licensed person? And that's just what do I see? That, and then how long does it usually take to look and see route consolidations? In a normal school district, say we start the first of the year, how long are those things, how early are those things looked at, and how early can a proposal usually be brought to a board? And I mean, this year we're already, February. I would say most kids are looking at the end of the school year, not the beginning at this point in time. But for next year, how early do those things happen? Because I would think that would need to be conversations that happen early on once we see where the landscape has landed. So, just a couple.
I can speak to a few of those. So first of all, with the van routes, we do have drivers that are CDL licensed as well as non-CDL licensed. So we do have van drivers that do not have CDLs, of course, and they are not required to. I can get those numbers, get back to you guys to see exactly in terms of the consolidation, whether or not there's CDL or non-CDL drivers that are taking on the newer van routes. I can also tell you that we are working in terms of the solutions we're continuing to build for short term. We're looking at that reallocation of resources in terms of whether or not we should pull the CDL licensed, drivers, from a gen ed route and then refocusing on the special education routes, because we have seen that the special education routes are the ones that tend to suffer more with the on-time performance. So we are looking at that to see if we can reconfigure that for just the most optimal performance that we can get. So as we are working through those, we'll continue to partner with you all and get approval for those updates. In terms of the timeline of how we're putting those routes together, we definitely start earlier, than this. This is more of an adjustment. I like to say we're kind of in the overtime right now. So this is an overtime adjustment in terms of how we're coaching ourselves and how we're working with you all to make adjustments mid-school year. But typically we would start working together early. We're looking to work together with you guys even starting now to move into the summer for different things we can implement next school year. As a matter of fact, as we've been working together, we're looking at the things that we can do short term, but also the things that we've pulled out that we can't do in the short term, and looking at those long-term solutions for what we can implement for the next school year. Because some of those things, even in the route consolidation that we ran up against, I mean, we talked about 54% ridership, but the 54% ridership is for multiple reasons. We can't just consolidate every single route that is not full just because the students aren't riding. We have students that participate in different sports, at different times of year that's going to impact their ridership. We have students that may not ride in the morning, but they'll ride in the evening, so we can't just consolidate their routes. So we have that big of a swing in the AM and PM routes. So we're looking at that now even in trying to get prepared, for next school year. Even though, of course, we're optimistic about being fully staffed with drivers, we're also trying to take a realistic look at where we are in the current landscape, just to make sure that we can diminish some of that variability that we're seeing and that's causing us to have less reliability for you as well as for the parents.
Ms. Taylor?
Try to go quick. I know we spent a lot of time on this. Thank you so much for your report. I had a question about communication, because you mentioned communicating to the district about, if the bus is late or whatever the case may be. Do you own the app that parents speak of when they can check where the bus is, or, what's going on with the route? Do you have a function like that that you use to communicate with parents?
Here Comes the Bus does provide notification to parents if there are changes to the route, if the route will be late. But we currently...
And are they receiving that communication? It seems like we get a lot of complaints about it's not accurate, it's not giving the right information. So I just wanted to bring that up as you go through and sort of look at things to improve upon.
That is 100% on the roster. It's on the list of things we want to continue to partner with you all about. Here Comes the Bus is the app. We currently, I think, have maybe about 50% of the parents actually have the app downloaded.
Okay.
So it's only the parents that have the app downloaded that will get the notifications.
Gotcha.
There are also challenges with the app, and we've also researched different opportunities that we can bring in from a technology standpoint to kind of shore up that just the reliability. Those are some solutions we'll have to partner with the district on, as some of those solutions that provide a little bit more functionality could come at additional cost. But we'll have to weigh those options with the benefits moving forward.
Okay, and then the last question, I guess personal story. So my daughter is in the LHS feeder pattern. She goes between, or her and her classmates might start at Kilo, then they go to LHS, they might end up at Harmon. So they're going back and forth. And the complaints I hear all the time is that the bus is late, the bus left me, I don't know where the bus is. And so I would be interested to know what the reports look like just based on that feeder pattern of timeliness, and then maybe a plan to address that one specifically because of it's sort of all day where buses are running back and forth between three campuses.
Absolutely. So we have heard you all there. So in terms of our reporting, initially we were, this is more of a consolidated report that we were looking at in terms of on-time performance. However, we have broken it down by feeder, broken it down by school, broken it down by AM and PM. So the type of reporting that you all will be getting moving forward is a lot more specific, and we're looking at those problem areas a lot more specifically. We're looking at that's actually what brought about, our in talking about resource allocations, like moving drivers around between general education and special education, because we have identified those top 3 schools, that are struggling with on-time performance, to see if we change some things around with, we do have a number of open routes because of the driver shortage, but if we shift those open routes a little bit and, where we consolidate, we can be very strategic about that, moving forward to make sure that we're getting the maximum, in those schools that are really feeling the impact, like you said, that we're able to provide more coverage and reliability. But we will not make those changes in a vacuum. We will be partnering with the district, Mr. Kosh and Dr. Rapp, to make sure that when we make those changes that they're agreeable, because dealing with the shortage that we have right now, not all changes are ideal. Not many parents want to hear, like, we'll have to pick your child up 15 minutes earlier. We'll have to pick your child up this many minutes later. We'll have to be very strategic about how we make those changes in, the situation that we're dealing with moving forward. But we are confident that as we make those changes, that it will provide more reliability in the interim.
I also had a concern about the communication, because communication with parents when you don't know where your kid is pretty important. I do have one quick, just logistical kind of question, which is, how long does it take to train a driver?
I would say so to train a driver, we bring the drivers in. Majority of the applicants or new drivers we bring in do not have their CDL to start. And so we have a 40 hours worth of class that a candidate will go through in order to train, practice, be able to take the CDL exam. After that 40 hours, then there is roughly another 3 weeks of what we call behind-the-wheel training that the driver will go through. And that is just what it sounds like, where they're, more hands-on training. And so after that, then they are, ready to start on a route. So you're talking roughly, I'd say, 4 weeks from start to finish.
I'm just looking that if you want to hire drivers, you're looking at a month then, right? And it's February.
Agreed. So when we say hire drivers, we have drivers that are, I'll say, at various stages of that 4-week, pipeline, already. So while yes, we do still take applications for drivers now, that doesn't take into account the drivers that are already in the pipeline that are being trained as we speak.
How many do you have in the pipeline?
I will say, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I don't have that number in front of me here, but I know that we have at least about 10 that we have prepared to come on board, any full-time drivers for us, CDL drivers, within the next 2.5 weeks. And then, I would say using those same numbers, probably another 5 or so, that would be roughly about another week and a half after that.
All right, very good. Thank you very much for the presentation.
All right, thank you.
Next up is Gifted and Talented Annual Update. Ms. Gall.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Rapp. Presenting our GT Gifted and Talented Annual Update tonight will be Mr. Kobe Stringer, Elementary GT Administrator, as well as Lori Evans, our Secondary GT Administrator.
Thanks for the opportunity to provide an update to you. We follow Texas Education Code and Board policy as it relates to serving gifted and talented students. This is the TEA definition of GT. LIC identifies and serves based on intellectual and academic abilities, while we don't currently place based on creative, artistic, or leadership abilities alone. LISD students do have opportunities to excel in those areas outside of the GT program. There have been some recent legislative updates that include specific amendments related to student identification, professional learning, fiscal responsibility, program accountability. We're monitoring our processes and our procedures, and we're making updates as necessary. The state allotment for LISD equates to approximately $175.82 per qualified GT student, which is $951,560 for this school year. As we continue to meet legislative requirements and seek to better serve our population, we spend well over the state allotment for the robust services that we provide. Approximately $3 million is spent on resources such as staff salaries, testing costs, and other programmatic needs. One significant revision is a change in professional learning for administrators and counselors. Previously, they were required to receive 6 hours of annual updates related to GT after completing an initial 6-hour training. Now they'll only be required to receive updates after legislative sessions. One thing to note is they'll still be required to complete the initial training, and they can also participate in the GT update trainings that we provide should they wish to do so. There are no professional learning changes for teachers. After completing their initial 30 hours, they'll continue to receive 6 hours of GT professional learning updates annually. The update trainings we provide are specifically designed to support LISD staff and better meeting the needs of their gifted learners. The change in our overall district population is also reflected in our GT numbers. Last year, there were approximately 5,719 identified GT students in LISD at this time of year. 4,205 of those were at the secondary level, and 1,514 were at the elementary level. We continue to focus our work on these 4 main areas: curriculum development, equitable identification, professional learning, and family and community engagement. At the elementary level, we've been developing new curriculum for grades 2 through 5 pull-out instructional time. Each week, qualified students meet with the campus facilitator who leads this learning. The new curriculum has significantly boosted the rigor of services that we're providing. It includes an intentional emphasis on thinking skills and the progression of those skills across grade levels. We're also creating new push-in lessons at the primary grades. Each campus GT facilitator pushes into every kindergarten, first grade, and second grade classroom each 9 weeks on a rotating basis. and they deliver this instruction. Not only is this providing additional opportunities for creative and critical thinking, but it's also allowing us to gather additional data on students who might be otherwise overlooked.
First, I'd like to say I'm delighted to be a part of the LISD community. In secondary, the LEAP curriculum continues to be adjusted in response to the schedule change of 90 to 45-minute classes. Consequently, we are working to refine the LEAP learning objectives and further develop a robust curriculum. We're gathering feedback on the success and needs of the current documents so we can make necessary adjustments. The campus GT facilitators and I are collaborating to design targeted learning related to differentiation and engagement around academic ownership. In the area of identification, we continue to respond to qualification data with special emphasis on these 4 student populations. Our goal is to increase access to assessment, identification, and services for all students. This chart shows the qualification rates of students referred by group over the last 3 calendar years. Previously, many referrals failed to qualify for services. You'll notice that we are doing a better job of getting the right students to the table with GT testing. We are working to close the gaps with these target populations. The use of universal assessments and increased staff training on gifted characteristics and identification are 2 of the ways we're trying to address these needs. This chart shows the percentage of target student populations in the district and percentage identified as GT. While we are getting more of the right students to the table for identification, we still have much work to do. We continue to explore opportunities to further close these gaps.
We're now in our 4th year of implementing the 2nd grade universal assessment in grade 2. It makes 2 years now administering it to all students in the grade level. Essentially, every LISD student is considered for gifted services in this way. The test items on this computer-based assessment that we're using are free from any language and presented using diagrams, numbers, and pictures. The minimal reliance on background information, knowledge, and skills, regardless of a kiddo's language, makes it easier to consider all student populations. We are thankful for the 2nd grade screener and want to continue prioritizing its use. This fall, we qualified over 300 2nd graders based on it alone. We're now in our 2nd year of using a 4th grade version to capture student transfers or those who might not have shown potential in the earlier grades. Last spring, we identified 64 additional students due to the 4th grade screener, and we anticipate positive results from our recent testing that we just concluded. Throughout the year, we have focused conversations related to targeted student populations as part of the identification and qualification process. Data is reviewed before and after each committee meeting at both the campus and the district level. Training staff to recognize gifted characteristics obviously helps ensure that students with potential are referred for testing. That's why we continue to design our own in-house professional learning targeted to our population. The K2 planned experiences and push-in lessons that are led by the campus GT facilitators also offer opportunities for students to show potential, which then result, hopefully, in positive student testing referrals.
We also continue to offer training for teachers and administrators focused on the identification and needs of gifted learners. All courses are designed specifically for LISD staff and in compliance with the state plan. Over 7,000 hours have been completed between June and January, with almost 400 staff members completing their foundational learning requirements. Currently, we have 364 staff members working towards their completion of foundational courses. We will continue to explore identified staff needs to design responsive learning that improves opportunities in instruction for every gifted student in our district. Family and community engagement remains a priority. Online parent resources are continuing to reach target audiences. We've had over 7,000 visits to the district's GT services website in 2024, and the resources we've included have had over 10,000 views. The quarterly parent newsletter provides timely resources and enrichment opportunities both at home, online, and in the community. They also highlight learning throughout the district via social media posts. We're proud to say that during the 2024 calendar year, newsletters had over 37,000 views. As we did last year, we will continue to gather valuable parent feedback on a spring survey. This slide shows that the first 2 questions included in the spring 2024 feedback survey to parents, you'll notice the overwhelming majority of parents completing this survey feel campus staff understand and address the needs of their gifted students. The majority of parents also agree that gifted classes inspire their students to explore their personal interests and investigate new topics. To better support the transition from 5th to 6th grade, we created online resources to outline shifts in the service models between elementary and secondary. We first shared these resources January of 2024 and have continued to update as needs arise. Last year alone, there were over 1,700 views on these resources. Thank you for allowing us time to provide an update on LISD's GT services. We are passionate about providing the best opportunities for students, and we're happy to address any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you so much. Board, are there any questions? Ms. Taylor.
I just had one comment and just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing to decrease the gaps with our underrepresented populations of students in GTE programs. It's a passion of mine, and so it's good to see that information presenting. Looks like, there's some strides being made, but recognizing also that there's still work to be done. So thank you for the report.
Anything else? Thank you so much for the report. I want to ask a question to follow up on Ms. Taylor's. You said you were doing extra things to identify those populations. What exactly are those? Beyond just the second grade screener, what are you doing to target those populations so that we can increase their participation in the program?
So a few different things that we're doing at the elementary level. One of those is that every time we do a testing cycle, so there are 4 in a year, and we call them a campus review committee and a district review committee, I look at and download data by grade level that includes every kid in the district, from what is your ethnicity, are you a 504 student, are you receiving any kind of dyslexia services, the gamut. We compare that standard population in the grade level versus the population of students that are identified for GT at the district level. But then I also give each campus their own copy of that data, and they use that data to guide the conversations that they're having about the students that are coming to the table at the campus level before they come for district review. We've also done a lot with the campus facilitators to make sure that we've done good training on the kinds of things to look for, because gifted characteristics sometimes exhibit differently in different cultural groups. So part of our foundational training of the 30 hours that teachers go through is training them on the nature and needs of a gifted learner, and understanding that in certain cultural groups, shining may not be something in the classroom that we're going to notice. Like, they might not be a student that's going to be very forward in the classroom. Also, students that are EB, emergent bilingual, exhibit behaviors differently than their peers. Things to look for, like when they're rapidly gaining language faster than other EBs, that's a sign that there may be something going on with the kiddo where we need to dig deeper. As the facilitators are going into those K-2 classrooms, they're looking for those target populations on their campus. So they're setting goals, thinking about, okay, what are our target populations here, and what are we doing to address them?
Very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. Next up is our monthly technology report. Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you, Madam President. The monthly technology report is in board book. It's for the month ending December of 2024. On the first page, you'll see our 2017 bond fund balance went down slightly. The reason for that is we made our final payment on our switch replacement project. On our IFE balances, our revenues are going up, but so are our expenses so we're still, basically we're keeping the same pace. On the device age, we're a month older than we were last month rather, but I will point out, actually today, staff got an email for their iPad refresh. So I mentioned before that the 3-year, 9 months seems a little old, considering we replaced all the staff devices. That should start turning around as we start replacing some of the older iPads. On page 2, just to point out again, our educational total bandwidth use is still running around that 95%. I do want to point out a couple things, specifically to the bottom graph. You'll notice that there's almost no at-home data recorded. I shared with you a couple times since we implemented the new version of filtering, which is essentially cloud-based. It's not passing on the byte usage, the megabytes in that session. We have actually had a call with Content Keeper about that. They're aware that the new version does not pass that. Obviously putting pressure on trying to get that resolved. They're not at this point able to commit to that, at least pull resources off of what's already on their development cycle, but they are willing to look at it and see if they can come up with a solution. But obviously, look, not guarantee. So we're still working on that. You'll see there is some orange in there. You may look at that. Well, why is that? Some of the devices at that point may not have been switched over for devices that weren't refreshed. So each month that orange is going to get less and less and less. But anyway, I just wanted to keep you informed that that's where we are until we come up with a resolution or maybe a different way to look at data. That's all I have on the monthly technology report.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Colbeck.
Thank you.
Next up are discussion items. First up is our monthly financial report, including the bond report, land sale report, and the monthly investment summary. Mr. Rare.
Thank you. The monthly financial reports are as of December 31st, and I want to highlight the general fund on page 166 of your board book. December is the first month in which our total general fund revenue exceeds our expenditures, and that's primarily because of the property tax collections that started coming in December. So through December, $179 million of the $184 million of local revenue is from property taxes, and that includes $169 million that we received in December. So we'll see that as well to be pretty significant in January. And then on the next page is the Child Nutrition Fund, and you'll see that through December we have a surplus of $545,000. And then for Debt Service Fund, at this time we have a pretty significant surplus, but I will remind you that we make our debt service payments in February and August of each year.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Rare. Next up is the 89th Legislative Session update. Dr. Rapp.
Madam President, members of the board, I wanted to provide an update from the information that I gave you last Monday. So I'm going to hit just a couple of quick items this evening. I want to come back around to Senate Bill 2 on educational savings accounts. It did pass the full Senate with a vote of 19 to 12 and has been sent on to the House, but nothing has been scheduled yet at this time for the House to hear this bill yet. Just a reminder, the way it did pass was pretty much the way we talked about last Monday, which was it allows every Texas student to apply for an ESA, and it would be $10,000 per year for a student who attends a private school, $11,500 per year for a student who attends a private school that has a disability, $2,000 per year for a student who's homeschooled, and this did get changed from last Monday. They made it where it's $2,500 if a student is being homeschooled with a disability. The other thing that you had asked about on Monday, and I wanted to provide an update to that, was where did the projections come from for what this program could cost over time? That is from the LBB fiscal note that you can find online, as well with when you track the history of the bill. So I did go back and take a look at that. An interesting note that I added when I went back and looked at this on the LBB, so I added this parentheses, is that they've also included how much they estimate they're going to save the Foundation School Fund by 2030, which is $805 million based on students who would be leaving the public school system they would no longer need to afford. There has been quite a bit of talk online around, is this going to impact TRS? And so I've gone back and taken a look. There was actually also an actuarial note attached to this bill when you go track the history, and that is where it looks like the conversation about how ESAs could have an impact to TRS is coming into the conversation. I just included a brief note here for you, Board, that the actuarial analysis notes that even a small adjustment, such as a decrease in the projected covered payroll growth, could be enough for TRS to no longer be actuarially sound, according to the statutory definition. And one of the ways that they can address that is that they could decide that if there's not as many employees paying into TRS in order to keep it actuarially sound, then they're going to increase the contribution that has to be paid, right? And so that could be a cost that's ultimately possibly passed on to districts as well. So just to keep an eye on that, but an actuarial note's not something I've noticed before on educational bills that we've been talking about, so I thought it was important to bring that to light as well. Just a couple of points of note. We talked about the basic allotment. Just an update on that. There's 9 bills to watch. 7 have been filed by House members, 2 filed by the Senate. 6 of those pertain to making an increase to the basic allotment based on inflation. So just something to keep an eye on there, that conversation seems to be a trend across those bills. I know on Monday I shared with you the information from TASBO in this chart and gave you the cost that if there was a $300 increase to the basic allotment, that would cost the legislature about $4 billion. And we know that about $4 billion is what they've put to spend on education. A $50 increase to the basic allotment would generate $3 million for our school district. A $100 increase would generate about $6 million. So just a couple of additional points since Monday night. I went over this chart Monday night with you all from the TEA annual report, and one of the things that Mr. Rare is going to work on for us is really laying out. You saw in the taper presentation tonight that it said our revenue was about $10,000 per student. And there's a lot of conversation around the $10,000 per student compared to the $6,160 basic allotment. I think it's really important for people to remember that in order to get to a $10,000 total, you have to include specialized allotment. So when you look on the screen, an enrollment-based allotment, the dyslexia-based allotment, that allotment is going to help us get to $10,000, but that dyslexia allotment cannot be spent on every kid. Special education allotment, that's going to help us get to $10,000. It cannot be spent on every child, and we know, of course, that special ed is well underfunded in the state of Texas by billions of dollars. So we're going to work on a breakout to communicate with our community that says this $6,160, that is what can be spent on every single child in Lewisville ISD. After that, to get to $10,000 per student, you're talking about special breakouts, and maybe that will help our community understand why that $10,000 is not represented accurately. And we all know for TEA's representation, to get to $15,000, you're including things like INS funds, and of course, even in this, you're including TRS on behalf. So that's a whole other issue. We talk about that extensively. But we'll work on some continued teach pieces for our community. PTA Rally Day is coming up on February 24th, and I know our PTAs are working hard to get people down to Austin to visit with our elected officials. I appreciate all their work and support. I know Julie Foudy's been working diligently on organizing PTA Rally Day. And with that, that is my update.
Dr. Bonner.
Dr. Epp, thank you for addressing the $10,000 vis-a-vis basic allotment and proposed voucher cost. That has come up extensively. It's just too simple to equate the two because they're almost the same number, until you start digging into it. And that may or may not be by design, I don't know. But to your point on the basic allotment, 100%, it is what it says it is. It is a basic allotment to every kid. And even then, the index pieces, the special ed, the homebound, that sort of thing, not only do they not apply to every student, they don't fully fund every student. So we're running a deficit on special education. We're running on transportation. We're running deficits all over the place because the basic allotment plus the index is simply not funding public education at the current cost. Why is that? It's that 20% inflation. So if you're listening, don't be confused by the equivalency of numbers. The basic allotment is exactly what it says it is, a basic allotment for every student. Thank you.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I also wanted to point out that when we think about that $10,000 and like a SPED allotment, that doesn't account for the fact that the vouchers also bump up for special education to $11,500. And we don't see that amount for our special education students. So that's number one. Now I'm gonna, that was one note. Now I gotta get on my soapbox. So I have 3 close personal friends who have either already in the past year or 2 or are currently exiting the profession. 3 close personal friends. Why? Because they are making it unsustainable to be an educator in Texas. I, too, am under TRS retirement, and every day I worry that I'm not going to be able to see that. Fun fact, I've also never put into Social Security because I've been an educator. So I'm not getting that either. So if you defund my retirement, for lack of a better word, I'm screwed. And we've got all of our staff members in this district that are going to be in the same boat. So not only can we not give them a raise because we don't have the money to do it, their insurance has gone up, so without a raise, they've actually gotten a pay cut. And now you're threatening the retirement. So the numbers show that there are not enough students exiting education programs to cover the need. Why would they? With the climate that we have right now, why would you become a teacher? Thank God that we have teachers that care enough about our kids in this district that they are sticking it out with us. Thank God, because I can't thank anybody else. Except for the leadership of this district that's showing these teachers how much they care about them. And for my fellow board members who are doing everything we can, from yelling at this dais right now, to going to Austin, to meeting one-on-one with every legislator that represents us. I don't know what to do anymore. That's all.
Ms. Lasan.
Okay. I have seen, one promising thing from Representative Hayes. He put out a press release regarding the voucher program, which he did vote for, or he's planning to support. But one thing that in his press release he wrote is, I fully support increasing the basic allotment and boosting teacher pay, and I'm actively working to secure meaningful investments in both areas during the session. So I just want to call that out and hope that he follows through on that. He is my personal representative. I live in his district. I plan on, and already have, reached out to him. Hey, I saw this. Good job. What can we do to help? So I think that now's the time to work with them and encourage, and let's try to get this done.
My only addition for some edification on that is we only get that money with 100% attendance. So I don't know if you know a kid that's been 100% attendance that never got the flu, never got sick, any of that. And there is no attendance requirement to the vouchers that are talked about. So you could go to school 4 days and still have your taxpayer dollars check cashed. There's absolutely no accountability whatsoever that you even have to educate a child. with those with the ESAs. There's no accountability tied to them. There's a lot of accountability tied to us. You heard our TAPER report earlier this evening. That is one of the accountability pieces that we have. And by the way, we should. I said this the other night. We should be held accountable. We are required to educate children, and we should be held accountable by taxpayers to do that. There does not seem to be any accountability, which I'll be very honest, just flies in the face of anything that I've ever held to when it came to the government. They should be held accountable on how they spend our money. And there's no accountability here. That 6160, once again, is based on 100% attendance. So it's really more, it's less than that, because our attendance rate is about 96%. So it's actually 96% of 6160. You heard earlier from the GT presentation that we spend $3 million more on GT programs than we are funded. That is $3 million that could be spent on other things. Other things like support for teachers, for teacher pay. Recently, we put out an article, it's in the Cross Timbers Gazette, which shows that we spend $6 million more on safety and security than we are funded. That is $6 million that could go towards teacher pay and other supports in the classroom. We spend $3 to $4 million more on pre-K instruction than we get from the state. That is $3 to $4 million. I have just, right here, identified $13 million that we are underfunded, and that's just a small part. So this is not about apples to apples. This is about not supporting and investing in the future of Texas. I say this all the time, there's no greater investment than an investment in a child. And if we continue to not invest in the future, you will get the future you deserve. So, with that, we will move on. I am in this. Next up, the district-wide intruder detection audit report findings. Dr. Rapp.
Yes, Mr. Garrett, thank you again for your work each month on this. We appreciate it, and we look forward to your report.
All right. Good evening to you all. Tonight, presenting 7 campuses that TEA visited for the month of January. The intruder detection audits were conducted at Briar Hill Middle School, Creekside Elementary School, Indian Creek Elementary, LHS Harmon, Peters Colony Elementary, STEM Academy at Donald, and STEM Academy at Memorial with no findings. We have received audits already in the month of February, so I'll be back next month. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you so much for the report, Mr. Garrett. Moving on to action items. Consider approval of the 2025-26 academic calendar. Dr. Miller.
All right, good evening. This is for approval of next year's academic calendar. I'm like, what is up with this microphone? Next year's academic calendar. There were over 5,000 responses to our survey to share input. Of those that responded to the survey, 60% selected the 445-minute option calendar, 40% selected the 435-minute option calendar. Whatever minutes, whichever calendar y'all approve, that minute will carry forward for in the future for what we do for our school day. And then communications will send out the results to students and staff and family at the end of this week so that they know for next year's calendar.
Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Barker.
I've calmed down. Don't worry. Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board approve the 445-minute calendar for the 25-26 school year as presented by administration.
Is there a second? Ms. Sells, is there any discussion? Dr. Bonner.
Dr. Miller, it's plain to see on the calendars, if I do the math at the bottom on the number of school days per year, but for those viewing at home and don't have a copy of it, what does a 445 per day minute calendar result in the number of school days?
For students, it's 172.
Yes, for students. The teacher schedule has been 187 forever because it's contractual. That's not what we're talking about, yeah. And so a 435-minute calendar results in how many days?
175.
175, correct. And Dr. Rapp has shared with us that 175 has been pretty much the regular for the last, I'd say probably 7, 8, 10 years, something along those lines. Correct? Am I recollecting that accurately?
Dr. Miller actually did the data poll, so I'll let her.
Around 74, 174, 175, except for COVID year.
Yeah, except for COVID year. Okay. Yeah, I'm never one to show my cards early on things, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I can't vote for less school days, so that's just where I'm at on it. Thank you.
Are there anybody else before I ask my questions? So I know that you also provided us our surrounding districts and how many days they were in school. At 172, would we be less than them, more than them?
It looks like there's from 170, 171, there are 3 others that are 172, and there's 3 at 171 and 1 at 170. So we would be with 4 others around at 172. There are actually none that are above 172 that I picked, that I selected.
Dr. Bonner.
Thank you. Ms. Prosnick, was there any consideration on 445 minutes and 175 days?
Based on the preferences of all the input committees, in order to do that, you would either have to start earlier in August or you would have to go past Memorial Day in order to hit those numbers.
Yeah, I guess that's the quandary I see, and I certainly don't think it's a bad idea to get input on things. However, we've sat at this very dais and talked about charter schools, frankly, that go to school more and are held up for their student performance, and we've gradually seen an erosion of dates, school days, and so that's really the heartburn I'm having over it is that. So, thank you.
I just wanted to say that I'm the same. I have a quandary. I did second this motion, but just to be able to speak, and that I believe also that in order to learn, the kids have to be in school, and that 445, I don't know that it's going to make that big of an impact. At that same time, we've had a process ever since I've been in this or ever since I've been on this dais, that we've allowed our parents to vote. And our staff, and it's clear. It's not even close. If it was like 52-48, I could justify what I know as somebody who studied education. The kids have to be in the classroom. What I don't want is our parents and our staff to walk away from this and believe that their voice wasn't heard. We asked. And so that is my quandary. And so I'm totally respectful because I understand that. I understand that our kids need to be in school. So just wanted that stated.
Dr. Barker?
I too want kids in school, but one of the other things that happened through the input was what can we provide to our staff? And one of the things that this calendar, 445 minutes, allows us to do is to allow more planning time for our staff targeted throughout the year in those needed times where they can get the things done that we're asking them to do. Am I speaking correctly on that?
Yeah, the number one thing that we hear from staff is they just need more work time. And if you remember, work time does not count for instructional minutes, only professional learning does. And the way, when you squeeze all those preferences of starting in mid-August, ending before Memorial Day, having 3 weekends and Christmas break, all the things we're used to, then your calendar is compacted. So with 435, you can't offer them more work time. With 445, we were able to give them 2.5 more days of work time, and that it's just the how the minutes work out in order for you to do that.
One of the things I think when it comes to teacher recruitment and compensation, we're now competing on 2 different levels. You're competing with salary and you're competing with calendar comparisons. And the 75,600 minute approach really caused districts to vary more widely. There used to be, when we were all in the classroom, it was pretty standard. It was a pretty specific recipe of how many days you were going to work and what it looked like. And of course, what we now know with 75.6 is that people have rearranged those minutes pretty drastically. And so as staff can compare calendars and time off for how much, will I have any time off for planning? Will I have any time off, to get my work done in my classroom outside of professional learning? And so I think that's where things have evolved on us, and the reason that we are, bringing forward for consideration is because you're really competing for staff on both fronts, salary and calendar approach.
Ms. Sells?
Can you just speak, Dr. Rapp, about the work that our teachers are having to do now compared to, say, when we were just for...
I think, you all have said it, several of you, multiple ways. It's never been harder to be a teacher than it is today. And I say, and y'all hear me say this publicly, I say it's never been harder to graduate from high school than it is today when we look at those graduation rates, too. There's definitely, and I think about our elementary teachers who are planning all of those content areas. I see some of them still sitting out here. There's a lot that you have to take into account. We grow the number of TEKs, and we don't grow more time in the day. We grow the number of requirements when it comes to RTI and filling out paperwork and MTSS, and we don't grow the amount of time in the day. And so I assure you that, we wouldn't bring this research before you all. I understand the heartburn that it gives. I genuinely do. And we wanted to make it where it was simply them giving us their input and preferences, that ultimately the decision lies here. It's not really a formal vote, just the input. But we know that our teachers are analyzing how much time do they have in other districts to get some of those MTSS paperwork and things of that nature done, and other districts have handled that differently.
I think sometimes our community forgets that teachers don't just show up and clock out at the end of the day. So it's a very different world than what I, as a child, got to witness my grandmother doing. And what even I did as a student teacher while I was learning to be a teacher, which I never fully did, because it was hard. It was hard even then. And that was 20 years ago. So thank you for the explanation, and thank you for combining that teacher thought in with the student thought, because is there ever going to be a perfect combination? Maybe not, but I think we can get as close to it as we can. And I'm saying perfect in that it's going to please everybody. And so I just appreciate the work that was done on it, and I'm ready to get this vote done so that people can plan. So,
Dr. Bonner.
Dr. Rapp, thank you for elaborating and placing the responsibility where it lies, which is the change from days to minutes, because that allowed for the parceling out of time. And frankly, if I can just be maybe the lone wolf on this, I don't know, adding 10 minutes to a school day is meaningless. At the middle school, you cut that up into 7 periods, and you're not even 2 minutes a period. And so that time is a figment of work frankly, because it won't be realized as instructional time. Does it get us where we want to be on days? Maybe, but it's lost time. It's kind of like when I was in middle school teacher, and the kids would say, I'm sorry I'm doing this to y'all, by the way. The kids would say, can we have some free time? And, it was usually the last 6, 7, 8 minutes of class, and I would make them get out a piece of paper and their pencil, and I would tell them to multiply 6 times, at that time, 180. And that's 1,080 minutes. And that's also how many ever days of school it is. 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many it is. And then I'd tell them, you just wasted that many a day, that many days. They hated it, but I feel like we're doing the same thing right now, is we're going to possibly add 10 minutes to a school day, and it's going to be a vapor. So I appreciate you all listening to my rant.
Dr. Barker.
I feel like Dr. Bonner and I keep going back and forth, and that's okay, because that's what this process is about. But I want to add one other layer to this that was part of the reason behind the 445 minutes, is that it allows all of our elementary schools to end at the same time without having to have additional minutes built into the day for STEM, because we can build those in with that 445 minutes. So just another layer. There's so many. The reason why there's a difference of opinions here is because it's such a complex issue. That's why you see these different viewpoints coming out. It's not, there's not a simple solution. So there's all these different layers that are being considered. So I just want to thank you, Dr. Bonner, for sharing your points and for having the space as a fellow board member to share mine.
Ms. Taylor.
I can say that I thought I had my vote in my head, and now I'm confused. But I see. Yeah, exactly. I guess now, I'm looking at the responses, and we did put this out, and we asked for responses, but now I'm looking at the breakdown, and can I clearly say that staff are, support this, because I'm looking at the percentage of how many responded. The percentage of the total.
That is the percentage of staff that
total. The percentage of the total. So the total is the other, 63%? 63% did not respond. Is that what I'm reading correctly?
63% of staff did not respond. When you look at the of the total number of responses, 37% of that is from staff. The rest is from parents.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because we have more parents than we have staff.
Right. And we're saying we got 5,000 responses, but there's a whole big number that didn't respond. Right?
Well, I don't know what 30. Dr. Bonner, do your good Canton ISD math for me. What is?
It's 3137 parent, 1934 staff, and then whatever 150, 156 other.
Okay.
Thank you, Canton ISD.
Yeah.
We have approximately 6,000 staff. It's a little bit less than that, but in that ish.
Gotcha.
We have 48,000 students.
Correct.
So there's more a percentage of staff than there are a percentage of students,
Gotcha.
if you're trying to break that down.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Are we ready to vote? We have a motion from Dr. Barker for the 445-minute calendar. We have a second from Ms. Sells. All those in favor? It's Dr. Barker and Ms. Sells. All those opposed? That is Dr. Bonner, Ms. Alcatab, Ms. Prosnick, and Ms. Taylor, and Ms. Lasan. Is there a second motion? Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. I move that the board approve the 435-minute calendar for the 2025-26 school year as presented by administration.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Dr. Bonner, a second by Ms. Lasan for the 435-minute calendar. All those in favor? That's Ms. Lasan, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Alcatab, and Dr. Bonner. Opposed? That's Ms. Sells and Dr. Barker. The motion passes. Next up is to consider approval of the Targeted Improvement Plan. Ms. Litchfield.
Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and Board. We're asking tonight for you to take action on approving the targeted improvement plans for DeLay Middle School, led by Mr. Adam Gray, Southridge Elementary, led by Ms. Wivana Ullman, and Mill Street Elementary, led by Ms. Deborah Bailey. The three principals and their wonderful staff are doing great things at their schools, and we are going to be able to showcase those schools to TEA this week as we walk with them at each of the campuses. So they are visiting. Just a quick reminder that plans were presented during the January 13th board meeting by Ms. Upshaw, Ms. Garrett, and Ms. Godby. You now have all the plans, and all the community meetings have been held. And so we're asking for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Litchfield. Do I have a motion? Ms. Taylor.
Madam President, I move that the board approve the 2024-2025 targeted improvement plans for Mill Street Elementary, Southridge Elementary, and DeLay Middle School as presented by administration.
Second, Dr. Barker. All those in favor? That's unanimous, passes 7-0. Next up is to consider approval of a missed school day waiver. Dr. Fitzhugh.
Good evening. TEA allows us to apply for a missed school day waiver after we have missed 2 days of school and made those 2 days up. Previously discussed in the work session, I believe, we missed January 9th and 10th due to bad weather. And then we had a third incident on February 3rd due to a water main break in Lewisville where we had to close several campuses. So this item is just us requesting and saying that we would like to submit a waiver to TEA for those campuses. Once we are, depending on the action tonight, we will submit to TEA and get back to the board with TEA's response.
Do I have a motion? Ms. Sells.
I move that the board approve the submission of a missed school day waiver for February 3rd, 2025, as recommended by administration.
Second, Dr. Bonner. I will say that this goes to funding, which I spoke about earlier. So there's that. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That passes 7-0. Next up is to consider approval of low attendance waiver. Dr. Fitzhugh.
TEA also allows us to apply for a waiver if our attendance at specific campuses with the district drops below or changes by more than 10% from the prior year. On February 3rd, as a result of the water main break, we had several campuses that were open, but their attendance did drop below that 10% threshold. So we would like to apply for that waiver to see if TEA will allow us to receive ADA funding as if the students were there because there was such a change in attendance.
May I have a motion? Ms. Alcatab.
I move that the board approve the application for a low attendance waiver for February 3rd, 2025, as recommended by administration.
There's a second. Ms. Taylor. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes 7-0. Next up is to consider approval of a resolution regarding the delegation of authority during temporary campus waiver closures. Dr. Rapp.
Yes, so as y'all have just discussed, because of the boil water notice and the 21 campus closures, this resolution would allow us to continue to pay staff that were impacted by that day.
Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the board approve the resolution regarding the delegation of authority during the temporary campus water closures on February 3rd, 2025, as presented by administration.
Second, Ms. Sells. Any discussion? All those in favor? That passes 7-0. Next up is consider a resolution for Superintendent of the Year nomination. Ms. Lasan.
Thank you, Madam President. I am here. I'm spearheading the committee. It's getting late, y'all. That is going to nominate. We have decided to nominate Dr. Rapp for Superintendent of the Year through TASB. And so I would like to move that the board approve the resolution nominating Dr. Lori Rapp for TASB's Region 11 Superintendent of the Year for her exemplary and visionary leadership toward improving student performance in the Lewisville Independent School District.
Second. Ms. Alcatab? A unanimous second. Any discussion? Dr. Barker.
I just want to say that this is the first year that Dr. Rapp is eligible to be put up for this award. And this is how much we believe in you and how much we are so grateful to get to work alongside you and see the wonderful way that you are leading this district. And I am honored to know you personally and to serve alongside you.
Dr. Bonner?
Well, I'm hopeful that the nomination to TASB is not similar to NFL MVP, where someone of the voters decided that a stellar candidate was not an acceptable nomination and vote. And so hopefully we'll see this nomination and vote go the way we know it needs to go. So thank you.
I would just say it's our pleasure to show you off to the rest of the state of Texas and to show the great work and the leadership that you provide here in this district. But your contract is for 5 years, so you can't leave. So with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Vote carries 7-0. Next up is to consider the order calling for the 2025 Board of Trustees general election for Single District Place 2, Single District Place 3, and at large Place 7. I would say that this is our second year of having single-member districts within the larger LISD proper, and then we will also have an at-large place, which is the entire district. So this is the second year in our reorganization of board elections. And with that, would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. I move that the board approve the order calling for a Board of Trustees election to be held on Saturday, May 3rd, 2025, to elect the single-member District 2 trustee, the single-member District 3 trustee, and the at-large Place 7 trustee.
Second, Dr. Barker. All those in favor? That carries unanimously 7-0. And believe it or not, with that, if there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 9:32 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.